So how'd you come up with the name Bud Johnson?
I needed the name.
Well, I know, but how did you come up with that specific name?
I mean,
You could have chose any name in the world.
better than John Smith. I mean, I was
Barely.
well, but that's the point. I was in the circumstances and in the locations we worked. It was a good name. Bud, just a good old guy, Bud. That's Bud. I have the ability to fit in real good in most local place environments because I can pick up the dialect and language and sound like the people that are there. I really started using it the most in Louisiana, and I didn't want to throw some coon-ass name out there and then not be able to be a coon-ass, They all speak French, and they use a lot of words like come see, and just the dialect is different. I just wanted to be invisible.
So Bud, that was that the first name you came up with?
Yeah. When I first went to Lafayette, the first day there, I stopped at their welcome center, so I bought a cap. It's a Segura Trucking.
Oh, you knew what you were doing.
Yeah. So I started buying stuff from the supply company. We got talking, so I had to give him a name. Gave him a name. I'm Bud, so I could walk in there. Hey, Bud, how you doing? And like I said, I've been in there 3 or 4 times, and he said, hey, why don't you just open up an account? It'd be easier, wouldn't it? What's your name? I said, Bud Johnson. He said, you got an ID? I started laughing. I said, well, when you drink a lot, you don't usually have an ID. He started laughing. I said, yeah, that's why I always got somebody with me. I don't drive. And I laughed about it, and we made a joke out of it. And so I opened up an account with my name. No address, nothing. It's my name. In the 80s, a good old boy with a pocket full of money, that's all he needed. He didn't need any ID. Told him I wanted to rent the warehouse. He said, this much. And I said, well, I want it for 3 months. He goes, we make a little better deal. So I asked him how much, and I counted out the cash and gave it to him. Never asked me for an ID, never asked me for shit. That's where we were keeping all our equipment. That's where we put the conveyors together. That's where we kept our boats and vehicles and shit. We rented houses, rented trailer houses, just with cash money and my name. Not that I thought I was that good, but people that knew me would show up and not know me. I was a welder. I looked like a welder. I picked up one guy at the airport, and he walked off the airplane. I was standing there, and I'm smiling at him. He walked by, and I went, hey, Michael, you want to ride or not? And he looks around, and he's looking at me real hard. I said, Bud, it's Bud. He goes, man, I didn't recognize you. It's good. And some people just didn't fit in. I'm trying to think of Jersey. We called him Jersey. White belt.
Yeah, he was from Jersey.
Yeah, Jersey. He had been involved in another deal down there, and he brought a bunch of heat on him. Because he asked me if I had a middle name. I said, no middle name, Bud Johnson. And he said, so there's 2 Bud Johnson. I said, yeah, my dad's Bud Johnson and I'm Bud Johnson. He's a senior and I'm a junior. Well, Bud Johnson is a legend. Bud Johnson won a paid vacation to the Caribbean because he was the customer of the month. I had to turn it down. Yeah, he gave me the dates. I said, man, I said, I can't be going then. That's when all the fishing is good. You really go fishing? I said, well, damn right. Yeah. I think I pulled my pants leg up and showed him how white I was. So you think I've ever been on the beach? The night we did the unload, 240,000 pounds. Is that right? Yeah, 240,000 pounds. We had 60 guys that we had to bring in. There was a couple guys that I met later there that actually came down from New Jersey. There was 3 of them, and they were all muscle guys, they power lifters and all that shit. Well, they weren't quite Guido, but they were pretty Italian. So I got to tell everybody what to do. So I climbed up on top of the conveyors and I said, all right, guys, here's how we're going to do it.
Why isn't that called an unload?
Because you're actually, when stuff comes off a boat, it's an offload. So we got the first 80,000 pounds out of there, first 2 trucks, and started the next 2, and I rode out on the 3rd truck. Yeah, 18-wheelers. We wanted to weigh to make sure we were okay on going through the scales. this is how you load the bales this high. Well, there was still room for more on top. Throwing a couple bales up on top of the other ones, I said, no, man, no. Just go to there and stop. It was like 200-something pounds over, and one was almost 400 pounds over. It wasn't that big a deal. We couldn't very well open the fucking trucks and take it out. Burlap and plastic. Oh, you can smell it. Fuck yeah, you can smell it. It's been packaged who knows how long. So it's starting to decompose. It always smells real strong. So anyway, so I went up north. I went to close to Detroit. The 18-wheeler,
all the way from Louisiana.
Yeah, we had to, in fact, we were on the way up there.
To Detroit.
The truck drivers were all IRA guys, Irish Republican Army.
So hold on now, I just want to be clear. You drove from Louisiana to Detroit.
Yeah.
In an 18-wheeler.
With 40,000 pounds of weed in it.
And you could smell it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another
no guns, just the weed.
Really?
We stopped at a hotel, and I'm in camouflage, and I'm in total camouflage. Yeah, Bud Johnson is in camoufage. Yeah. I started taking my clothes off and took my shirt off and threw it out the window, took my shoes off, threw them out the window. There's not going to be anything on me that ties me to that place if something happens. He got me a room, and I said, well, man, I'm going to go in and take a shower, but I'm going to be in the truck. He goes, well, I said, I can't leave that truck alone overnight. If something happens to it, I got to have an answer. If the answer is me not being here anymore, then that's got to be the answer. So I went out and slept in the truck with the weed. Yeah, Bud Johnson did. I'm betting that the person that owned the farm wasn't comfortable with someone like that showing up at his place. So that was why I went, because they had to have somebody that could drive a truck from wherever the truck driver got out of it to the farm. And then I took the load to the farm. We unloaded, weighed it, you can weigh every bale as it comes off. There was the guy that owned the farm, and it was a big farm. Yeah. Bud Johnson can drive anything. I guess we stayed in the hotel. I went every day. We'd go somewhere. We went several other places where trucks had been unloaded to check on everything, make sure things were good. We got enough money together that we had the money to pay off the guys that unloaded the pot. And most of them were from Texas. 3 Oldsmobile, I think they were 88s, 4-door grandpa cars. The biggest Samsonite luggage that they make, suitcase, would hold about $750,000 in 20s. So we had the trunk full of that shit. Put air shocks on the back of the Buick so it wouldn't sag. Bill weighs 1 gram, any bill. It don't matter if it's 100 or if it's a 1. We started weighing it because those money count machines, the way we were using them, they didn't last very long. You're sitting there for 8 hours at a time, packing money in it, and it never turns off pretty much. The only rest it gets is when it runs out and before you can stick another bundle in it. I have a picture of $500 million here somewhere. I'll find it in a minute.
It's like a pallet?
No, it's a room. I mean, the safe house where we had the money that was shipped out to South America, to Panama, was in boxes, like, small U-Haul type boxes, filled up the basement of that house we rented, the safe house. The whole basement. So we're down there, we're hanging out, bullshitting, talking, and one of them says, hey man, do you know Bud Johnson? I'm like, yeah, I know him. How much does that guy weigh? What is he, 6'4"? Maybe 6'2", probably weighs about 250. My buddy that's with me is over, he's having a hard time because I'm making this shit up, yeah. That's kind of how the conversation went, because they were talking about, man, that guy's big. Wow, he's something. I'd like to meet him. I don't know where he's at, maybe you will one day, I don't know. That was kind of the part of it. Well, I had to go back up there to get some more money, and we were at some place, a guy's house, or a safe house probably. And these guys were there, and there were some of the uppity-ups that had been bought large amounts. And these guys were his guys. And they were there, he was there, a bunch of other people were there. We're all sitting around talking shit. And one of our guys, we're smoking a joint, goes, hey, Bud, give me that joint. And those 3 guys immediately whipped around and looked. I had the joint in my hand, and they were looking at me, staring at me, and I went, yeah, well, I guess you got to meet Bud Johnson, didn't you? And they're going, bullshit, you're not Bud Johnson. But they had this impression that Bud Johnson was this big motherfucker. Yeah. And in the indictment, there's more talk about Bud Johnson than there is about me. There's a lot of information about Bud Johnson, but it's like he's a different person. True, yeah, because when Bud Johnson had to go, went through the trial, I had to debrief, they called it. I forget how many, we had 100 something years of charges against us, all kind of bullshit. I mean, that's just how they do it. You know, they charge you everything they can to try to make you freak out. They're asking me these questions. Typically, they started out the first day, they go on or about January the 5th, yada, yada, some year. And they'd say something, and they'd look at me, and I'd go, I did that, but I don't know fucking when it was. You don't know when it was? No, I don't have a clue. I'll tell you if I did it or not, if I know anything about it, but don't ask me when it happened because I don't know. So the first day, it didn't go well because of that. So the second day, it started off right off the bat. First question, on or about? And I went, man, look, how many times I got to tell you I don't know on or about, or years or dates? I said, the only date I got for you is December the 8th, 1980, and that's when I got arrested in Anahuac and John Lennon got shot. Besides that, I ain't got no dates for you. I mean, even when they started writing the book about it, before the writer really figured it all out, she thought Bud Johnson was somebody else, and there was two people, me and Bud Johnson. Well, Bud was a pretty important character. Yeah. Bud had a reputation that he could be trusted. The guys from Boston trusted me a lot. They bought a lot of weed, and Stephen was full of shit. He told people things he thought they needed to know, whether it was true or not. I mean, it's like, the load will be here next week. Fucking bullshit. It ain't gonna be here next week. When we were working, especially when we were working on the 1 million pounds, I was a lot more involved in that, and I went up north quite a bit. And they'd ask me, man, hey, Stephen said it's gonna be here in 2 weeks, and I just laugh, kind of smile and laugh, and shit, it ain't gonna be here for a while. It's gonna be more. You ain't had this house a month. You're gonna have to sit on this house 3 or 4 months before it gets here. Not just because it's not coming yet, but people get used to seeing you, so you kind of become part of the scenery, and nobody looks at you when you do something. Okay. But I knew that it wasn't fucking happening next week. I mean, I'm just coming up here with a truck for a dry run, so we're gonna pull this truck in here and let it hang out for, a couple of days, and then we're gonna drive it off, and then we're gonna see if any bullshit comes down over it. I mean, some of the places were a house out in the middle of nowhere, and they'd build a barn that truck could fit in, like a tractor barn. I mean, some places were warehouses, and it was normal, everyday truck stuff. The guys that owned the warehouses would shut them down when they were bringing in a load, so there wouldn't be any employees there. The boat repair place where we unloaded, they took a long weekend. So
the owner must have been involved?
The owner was, yeah, he got $1 million. It's supposed to be almost in print. It's called The Last Gentlemen Smuggler. It's about this, it's really, it's about the group. It's really about Stephen Kalish because he's special. And, according to him, he did it all. But I got to give the guy a lot of credit. He was good at what he did.
He had the big balls.
Yeah, so when she started writing the book, I was, following the page, and I would see posts about people, and, there would be my name and Bud Johnson's name. Well, she knows now. Yeah. Well, and even when the government was investigating all of it, they somehow ended up at that supply house asking questions about who bought all this stuff. And through the questioning, they found out that Bud Johnson had spent a lot of money there. And other people would go, that's Bud Johnson? Yeah, he was pretty cool. Bud was a good guy. Well, and, I mean, we had restaurants we frequented. Bud was well known all over Lafayette, Louisiana. At the nice steakhouse, at the barbecue place, at the crawfish place out in Abbeville. Yeah, Bud was pretty well known. Yeah, I mean, to do an offload that size, it takes. There was 7 or 8 of us there for 6 months before we unloaded. Well, we had a big house, and then we had the warehouse, and Dwight and I stayed in the warehouse, and some of the other guys stayed in the big house. But we had to find and rent enough places for 60 guys to hang out. Trailer parks, you could call them, at people's houses out in the country. They might have 4 or 5 trailers. The story was we were oil field workers. We were working offshore. And it wasn't unusual to see different cars and different people there. Yeah. Well, there's a good story of Bud. We'd go to this restaurant in town, a local place, kind of home cooking. Sitting around talking and eating, and, you'd see the same people in there all the time. They knew my name was Bud. And when Bud Johnson got arrested, one of the cops recognized me from the restaurant. After they arrested me, when he said, your name's Bud, isn't it? I knew I was arrested. I knew they had me. And if I gave an alias, then that would be another charge. So I just told him no. And they did finally get me to jail. I told them my right name. I wanted the folks that needed to know where I was to be able to find me. So I used my real name. That was the Anahuac load. That was before the Bulldog load, the load in Louisiana. The Anahuac load was 40-something thousand pounds that was on a shrimp boat. No, it was 2 box trucks. And at that point in time, we were working with the Colombians, and the Colombians didn't trust anybody. They didn't trust each other. They wouldn't let us drive the trucks out of the offload site to the safe house. The first truck pulled out, they'd missed the turn and dropped the back wheels off in the ditch. So then they took the second truck, and they took all the pot they could get out of the first truck, so they packed the second truck full. And they were doing this on their own underneath the bridge. Then they tried to pull the second truck out with the first truck with all the pot in it and burnt the clutch out of the other truck. So now they got 40,000 pounds of weed in 2 trucks, one of them stuck in the ditch and one of them's no clutch. That's when we got the message, hey. So I had the big winch, that old winch truck. So I jumped in it, had a big winch, and I went out there, tried to pull the truck out of the ditch. The winch truck wasn't heavy enough to pull that truck out. So they decided the best thing to do was to take the truck that had the most weed in it and get it out of there. So I hooked onto it. Top speed was about 40 miles an hour. Just before we got into Anahuac, we made a turn. It was so much, it was been raining so much and there was no traction, I couldn't get the truck as far in as we needed it to go because the winch truck had just spin. We eventually got it where it needed to go, and I went back to get the other truck. Well, the head Cuban was supposed to go ahead of me to make sure everything was good. He did. He was supposed to, if there was something going on, he was supposed to warn me coming back. Oh, we didn't have any cell phones. We had radios, but they weren't that good, I'll put it that way. They had already busted the site by the time I got back, before I got back.
Who?
The cops, every cop in Chambers County. What happened was, while we were offloading, a game warden was driving across the bridge real slow and he had his windows down. It was so foggy that when the shrimp boat came in, I'm standing on the point at the Intercoastal Canal, and I couldn't see the shrimp. I didn't see the light on the front of the shrimp boat till he was about 10 foot from me. So it's a perfect night for us. Mm-hmm. But the problem with the fog is sound carries so good. And we were using these grocery store rollers, they're like a 10-foot long roller, just a bunch of wheels, and you shove the bales down it. Well, it makes a lot of noise. So the game warden sitting up on top of the bridge, I don't know, fucking around doing something, and he could hear that noise, and he could see the mast light on the shrimp boat. So he called in about it, and they told him, "I don't worry about it, it's just some shrimp boat taking on supplies probably." Well, then he decided to go down under the bridge and see what he could see, and when he did, he saw that truck stuck in the ditch. So he left, and that's when he called in to report the truck. Well, that must have been right about the time that I went out there and left with the other one. Because when I left, it was cool. Well, I hadn't got to Anahuac when the cops actually passed me going down there. I didn't know it because their lights they didn't have marked cars. And every cop in the county pretty much surrounded the place. They were on both sides of the Intercoastal Canal. The guys jumped in the getaway boat and hauled ass. Well, we had a guy out underneath the bridge in a pickup truck like he was fishing to watch. And he called out everybody, "No, the cops are here." So the guys that were left jumped in the fiberglass speedboat, and then we had that, and we had a John boat, a 16-foot John boat. The guy in the John boat was supposed to pick up the guy that was in the pickup truck under the bridge, and so he was right up against the bank on one side, going real slow. Well, the big fiberglass boat, when he came out of the cut, he was wide open, going down the middle of the Intercoastal, and there was about six, maybe 8 guys in there, and there was cops the cops were on both sides of the Intercoastal. The Intercoastal's pretty big, so they immediately opened up fire and started shooting. Concentrating on the boat in the middle of the Intercoastal. Of course, it was, going wide open, making a big wake and all that shit. They didn't see the other boat. Well, the guy that was in the truck under the bridge, he'd already said, "Fuck it," and he jumped in the Intercoastal and swam across the Intercoastal. So the guy that was looking for him couldn't find him, so he had to leave. So they shot the boat up big time. It's amazing nobody got shot. But in the excitement, they shot each other's cars on opposite sides of the Intercoastal. I was gone in the truck with the weed. Yeah, when all that happened. So I got pretty close to the bridge. I could see the bridge, and the last road I had to turn off of and not go to the bridge was coming up. I was going to pick up the other truck. What I was going to do, I was going to go down there and pull up to a telephone pole and pull him out and then tow him off. Before I got that road, a green pickup truck passed me, and it was Efren. It was the guy that was supposed to warn me. And I was looking at it really hard, and he never waved, he never did shit. So I said, well, it must not have been him. It wasn't a mile to that road, and when I got to that road, there was a car parked there facing the road I was on, sitting on the side of the road. I could tell by the car sitting there, I knew it was an undercover cop. It was a brown Chevrolet, it was, screaming cop. Well, the guy in the car had on a cowboy hat, and that's thinking, that's some kind of fucking cop. Well, at that point, if I turned, I was giving it away that I knew something was going on, Mm-hmm. So I said, well, I'm just, you know, they know I've been living down here. They know this truck. They know me. I'm going back. So I just kept going, having no idea that every cop in the damn county was there. I was still figuring I could probably just, you know, talk my way out of this bullshit.
Yeah.
When I passed that road, that car pulled out behind me. So I just slowed it down to where he had to fucking pass me. When he passed me, I could see his cowboy hat sitting on the seat of the car. I knew I was busted then. So I just drove off the road, went up underneath the bridge and pulled up. And like I said, there's every fucking cop. I don't know how many cop cars there were. I pull up and this cop comes walking up the truck and going, man, looks like y'all got a problem. He goes, no, you got a problem, boy. Get out of your truck. So I got out of the truck. I put my hands up on the hood of the truck, spread eagle and all that, and he searches me. Well, I had a knife on the back of my belt, you know, horizontal on my belt. It wasn't sticking up down, it was sideways. And I had on blue jeans and a pullover raincoat and a t-shirt, and the t-shirt was covered in burlap and pot. I didn't know it at the time, but I'd been in the hole pitching bales all night. So I got out, he checks me, and when he gets through checking me, I go, officer, I have a knife, would you please take it? It's on my belt. So what he does, he goes, he's armed, and steps back. And all I could hear was these shotguns going, chick, chick. And I thought I was dead. I thought, well, fuck, I'm gone, you know. I laugh about it now because I remember I tried to get as little as I could get. I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm thinking, you know, belittle. I mean, I heard all these shotguns going, and he going, he's armed, so they're all, and they just got through emptying every gun they had at the other boat. So they were still pretty pumped. But all I heard was these shotguns going, he's armed, after I asked him to please take my knife.
Taking a deep breath, thinking this is the end for old Bud. And I feel a hand on my shoulder. And the guy spins me around, and it's a Texas Ranger. And he goes, I got him.